So this weekend has has had an extreme amount of drama for me. A lot of things have happened. The biggest thing is my aunt passed away. This aunt has been very meaningful to me. My uncle married her later in life, and she helped me through two very painful periods in my life when my mother passed away and when I lost my apartment during the recession. And she was like that. She would pull herself by her bootstraps and pick herself up, and that's something that I learned reading her tributes is that she went through times in her life before she met my uncle, and went through some very difficult times and pulled herself through that, and just found the inner strength to be able to do that. And um, it made me think about what happened. The conversations that we had when my mother passed away were very personal. I don't really want to talk about that. But the when I lost my apartment, I think it's very relevant because I think with going through cancer treatment, you get financial problems, and I almost lost my place to live this weekend as well. That was another drama thing, and a lot of that was some head canon going through my landlord's brain, and that resolved itself. And I'm a little angry with my landlord for creating that drama because I have other things that I'm dealing with, and I didn't really need extra drama. But we won't go into that. I think I had resources, and this happened in 2011, so it was a while back, But I had other resources that a lot of people did not have during that recession. And I think this goes into a thing that a lot of people are talking about class and how and privilege. And I think this goes into a fundamental unfairness in our society and how stratified it is. And people were talking about how they were out of work for 4 years when I started my first job in 2 years. And I was shocked that, as bad as it got for me, that other people had it twice as bad as I did. And I went through the ringer in a recession. I lost my apartment. Um, you know, I had to relocate twice. It was scary for me. And as bad as it got, I never had to sleep on a park bench. I never had to sleep on the streets. I never had to roam around. I never had to go in a shelter. It and a lot of this was because I do have wealthy relatives, and this was a privilege that I had, and I did have to beg them for help. And this goes back to something that I learned in college was I was in a political organization, and don't bite my head off. This was in the 1980s when I was in that organization, and we had a member of the Junior League, come and speak. And somebody had asked her, what is the difference between street people and regular people? And she said they don't ask for help when they need it. And that always registered in my head, they don't ask for help when they need it. And I've always been very independent. I know what I need to do, and I've never really needed help until that point when the recession hit. I apply for jobs, I get jobs, people hire me, I'm good at what I do, I get promoted quickly, I don't need help, that kind of a thing. And so it was kind of an alien comment to me, but it was a shocking kind of a thing. And until 2011, and then I remember that. And I had to ask for help. I asked for help from my best friend in college, and I asked for help from my uncle and aunt. And that was a low point in my life because my unemployment ran out, and I got evicted from my apartment. And legally, it was not on my record that I got evicted because we made an agreement that I would be out of the apartment before it went on record as an eviction. I loved that apartment. It was right in the middle of the financial district. It was my own place, and it had good security. It was in San Francisco and everything, and it was just an exciting area and everything. And I lost all that. So, there were no jobs in 2011. So, my employer, I work for a staffing agency. They said that they might have jobs in Dallas, Texas, North Dallas. So, I flew over there, and I asked my aunt and uncle for help. And my aunt asked me to send her a picture of myself, show her that I was okay. And that picture, I changed my selfie on Facebook to that picture. And of course I'm getting the guys, oh, you look hot. Yeah, I suddenly grew my hair back, and I look 14 years younger all of a sudden, and I started working out every day for 3 hours because I have nothing to do. Yeah. No, that was a horrible time in my life, actually. But yeah, I did look hot then because I had nothing to do but work out for 3 hours a day. So I did look hot back then. I was in good shape. But that's the thing, is that I was able to ask someone for help, and I had someone that I could go to and ask for help. And that is the difference, is that I was able to ask for help, and that I had someone I could ask for help. And that's a social difference that, in my family, that that, that was just, you don't live out in the streets. It's not done. And I think that's a thing that's changing in my family. We're not we're not in that generation anymore. You know, my grandmother came from an extremely wealthy family, and my uncle did really well in his career, and that generation, they there were social classes and social graces, and people that came from those social classes, there were just things, and if you came on hard times, you pulled yourself by your bootstraps, and you asked certain family members for help if you came on hard times, and you had to humiliate yourself and do that. And that's what that woman was talking about at that function at school. And we don't have those kind of social structures anymore in society. And the other thing is, a lot of people do not come from families like that, where you even have that in the first place. Those structures are breaking down, or they didn't exist in the first place. And that is why people are talking about things like restitution for uh, for you know instituting things like slavery in people's ancestry and things like that. They never had the ability to ask someone for help, or things like that when they came on hard times. And these are things that we take for granted. Nobody wants to ask someone for help. Nobody wants to be in that kind of a position in their life. But to be able to do that, if that happens, is a lot different than not being able to do that at all. You know, for someone who is, you know, the most successful person in their family, and then they have nobody to go to. That's that's something different. And then when they come on hard times, there's no one to go to, and they're on their own. They can't go to their uncle or aunt. They have no one to go to. So when they lost everything, they're sleeping in a homeless shelter. And that is the difference in social structures in this country. There's nothing underpinning anything, and it's different in Europe. And I've had my cousins overseas ask me things about, I was complaining about that I don't have any way to get my doctor's appointments right now. And they were like, well, can't you get a ride or whatever? I'm like, that doesn't exist in this country. There's nothing here about that. But it's a more fundamental thing, is that it's expected in this country that you have some kind of a wealthy relative that you can go to for help when things go wrong. And if you don't have that, you're a piece of garbage in this society. And that is what's wrong with America. That's how you separate the old money from the nobodies. It's been meant to be like that in this society. It's not that people that are on the streets are unwilling to ask for help. They have no one they can go to. They don't have an aunt that will ask them to send a picture of themselves when they lost their apartment and lost everything after they sent them, $600 to pay for a hotel room for 2 weeks. They don't have that. Make sure that they're taking care of themselves so they look presentable for job interviews. They don't have that. They have nothing. They have to go and check into a homeless shelter, or they sleep on a park bench because they have nothing. Nobody cares about them. There's no one to take them in. And that's where that woman from the Junior League was wrong about that. It's not that they are unwilling to ask for help, they have no one to go to. It was probably good advice for anyone in attendance at the college Republicans meeting in the 1980s, because there was a certain level of privilege that anybody that would have joined college Republicans at a university, there's you're probably very likely to have somebody that you can go to for help if you belong to an organization like that, you know. So you probably have someone like that in your life back then. But there's a phenomenal level of ignorance about other people and a lack of empathy about people that don't have that. My aunt saved me twice. Twice. I mean, I don't know how I would have gotten through that, and I know that she talked to my uncle. My uncle's tough. He's still around. He's not well. He's almost 90 years old, and he's not doing well. And I'm sure he's doing even worse now because the love of his life is gone. But he's very tough, and he's very smart. There's something that probably is not in your house now, but it probably was in the 90s that he invented. And, he made a lot of money off that. And, you know, but I think she talked to him, and that, you know, she got me through those times in my life, and I do miss her. Um, I knew that they weren't doing well. They both been difficult to contact the last couple of years. My cousin that I was staying with a couple of years ago, and I've been trying to reach out to them, and they both have been under caretakers, so it doesn't come as a surprise. They're extremely elderly, but it's still very hard, But I should have brought my tissues out here. I didn't think I'd start crying on. I don't know why I didn't think that, but I when you're in a rough time, if you have somebody that you can reach out to, you need to do it, even if it's humiliating. But if you don't have someone like that, don't feel bad about not doing it. The problem is with society that it is set up like that. It's set up to cater to rich families. So I think that that advice really needs to be tempered. Yes, the people that are on the streets, they didn't ask anyone for help, but maybe they didn't have someone that they could go to. And we need to set up our society where we don't require people to do that, because there are so many reasons why that shouldn't be a requirement. You know, even I shouldn't have had to go to an aunt and uncle. That's I'm not their kid. I'm grateful that I was able to connect with my aunt, and have those moments, but I'm not their kid. And you know, they have their own children and grandchildren, and I'm not really their responsibility. That's a thing. And that's really something that you know and that's another thing entirely. I mean, my relationship with my parents never really grew up, and that's another thing entirely. I mean, you know God knows how many hours I've spent in therapy about that. But that's when you have you know a couple of adults in the family, and you have 13 children in a family, and only a couple of them are behaving like adults. You're going to end up with a lot of uh, grandchildren coming to a few authority figures, and that's not a good situation. That's not a good situation at all. And then so you shouldn't have a society where you have situations like that set up. You shouldn't have a society where you have one patriarch in the family, and a bunch of little infantilized adults like that. But anyway, that's kind of how I see it. You know, we need to make it where people are more empowered to take care of themselves. And I don't just mean when they're working full time and the economy is good. That's a given. I've always been able to, do really well for myself when the economy is good, even when the economy is mediocre. It's when times are extremely bad and I'm sick, that's when things go upside down. What I was talking about was in 2010 and 2011 when the economy was super bad, that's what I was talking about. And right now, I have cancer. And I got a text message from my landlord saying that I was irresponsible. I shared that text message with my friends on Facebook, who are mostly people that I grew up with. And they got as upset as I did about that text message, you know. Um, and I shared my feelings about that text message with the one who sent it. So their reaction was the same as mine. A person is not irresponsible if they get sick. That is I have coworkers who want to take time off because they did not get their flu shot and they got the flu. And I should not judge them because I did that one year and I got the swine flu and I got really sick from it. I got the pneumonia from it. I learned my lesson that you need to get your shots. I learned my lesson about that. But, you're when you do things like that, you create a burden on other coworkers. I'm sitting there working with stage 3 cancer. But there comes a point when I'm feeling the side effects from chemo and I can't work anymore. And I have a thing called FMLA. And I have to sign off and lie down because it's just too miserable. I've had to throw up. I've had headaches. They're just so bad I can't see. Those kind of things, that's not being irresponsible. I can tell you, the Army will let people off for things like that. Army doesn't make you go out and fight in the battlefield when you are going through chemotherapy. They will put people in the VA hospital or something. I have clients that are veterans that were treated for cancer. They don't make them go out and fight in the war zone when they are being treated for cancer. I work from home, but I'm still working with cancer, and that's not being irresponsible. But there's a limit of what I'm able to do, and I might not make it. I did not get to ring the bell. Telling me that I'm irresponsible because I can't work 40 hours a week with cancer, that's so main character. And it was because somebody put the wrong address on their thing. They were mad because they put the wrong address on it and didn't tell me that. Never told me that. That was, and I'm dealing with death in the family. I'm dealing with maybe my cancer metastasized. I'm dealing with I can't get to my doctor's appointments. And I'm supposed to psychically know that somebody didn't put the right address for their checks. And I'm irresponsible because I don't work 40 hours a week with stage 3 cancer. So, yeah, whatever. So, this country is so fucked up that we require people to do this. Other countries don't. They put you up in a cancer center when you're being treated for cancer. You don't have to get rides to your cancer appointments because you're right there. And you don't have to, you don't have to work while you're being treated for cancer. But this is America where you have to do this. And then, I would have been done with my cancer treatments by now if it was some other country. Because I would have been done with the treatments by now. Instead, it has to be dragged out because I can't get rides over there and stuff. And it makes a treatment take a lot longer because of that. And it's more expensive this way, too. It's a bunch of nonsense. So, you all don't need to see what's on this shirt. It's comfortable. Um, so, anyway, so if you're being expected to ask for help from a relative and everything, I get that, but if you don't have a relative that you can go to ask for help, that's a fundamentally wrong thing with how our society works. And a lot of my classmates in school just assumed that I had a lot of money and that I was like hiding it somewhere and everything, and I don't. My parents were not rich at all, not rich. And, I had a full ride in college because I earned it. And I worked very hard for that, and it has it having relatives that have money, it has shielded me from some horrible things a few times in my life, and that's something that um, on the other hand, I have not enjoyed a lot of the privilege that some of my classmates and peers have had. You know, I can look at some of my uh, peers. One of my best friends, her parents gave her a house, and she's had a lot of trauma too. I mean, she's had health issues, and just because you get a house does not mean that it doesn't come with bills, and she hasn't been able to keep up the bills. They knew they were helping her to lower her bills, not eliminate them. And bills don't go away just because you have a house. So things like that. And I know that my uncle's side of the family, they have other tragedies that happen too, and I won't go into that because that is public and that's something they don't want to discuss. They don't appreciate that, you know. And they have a lot of nice things that happen because they work hard, and some of the members of that family are extremely well known. One of them is a celebrity, and so they would not appreciate me sharing their laundry. So you know just because somebody has money does not mean everything goes away and is perfect for them. You know, you have to work really hard to continue to keep up that kind of a status in life and everything. And I know that my aunt, I didn't even know she was in a sorority in college. I did not know that. I know that she came from Wales. I know that Wales is not a wealthy country. It's they've had to endure a horrible amount of hardship over the centuries. But I know that her first husband passed away when he was very young, and she had to take care of her family and everything. And she was a close friend of my uncle, and their families were good friends. And so the families were friends, and at a certain point they fell in love, so on some level they did have the same social status. So um, dealing with all of that, there's people have problems in their life, and then they have successes in their life. But even people that do well in their life have to go through things. So but she was just a very kind person. She would see who was hurting the most in the room, and just kind of focus and on that person and make them feel better. So I think if you see somebody who's down on their luck, don't assume they have somebody they can ask for help. If you do, go to them for help when you've hit rock bottom. But if you don't have somebody like that, you shouldn't assume that someone has someone like that. We need to make it where people don't have to resort to that. That's my thought. Have a good day and take care.